Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you've been watching or listening to us from. My name is AyoT, and this is EaglesTracker, the home of Nigerian football. On this special episode of the Home of Nigerian Football podcast, I have somebody that's in the football field, but a different kind of guest than the footballers that you guys are usually used to hearing me speak to and hearing their stories. This time, I have a lawyer, someone that has worked with many different clubs like Remo Stars, Beyond Limit, has worked with top names in Nigerian football, and I have the pleasure of talking to him today so that he can spill everything that is necessary and is important for grassroots players, young players in Nigeria, for clubs in Nigeria, as well as for international players that have already made it, to know that the things that they need to be aware of legally and the things that they need to know so that they don't fall into any issues in the future. Welcome to the show, Pius. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo. Yeah, it's nice to be here with you.
Yes, thank you. Can you just tell people a little bit more about yourself very quickly? Who are you? What do you do so that they can understand better?
Okay, so I think you already did the introduction already, but as you said, I'm a sports lawyer with specific expertise in football-related matters, basketball, and esports. Yeah, though football constitutes over 70 or 8% of the job I do with my firm. So what we do is to provide legal guidance to football stakeholders, that's the clubs, the players, the agents, and the coach. And in the course of doing this, we've been privileged to represent the likes of Emmanuel Amuneke, Tijani Bangida, Kanu Wankwo, Remo Stars, Beyond Limits, Enyimba, Lobby Stars, Katsina. In fact, I think the top clubs in Nigerian football, not just in Nigeria, but outside of Nigeria, we have represented clubs like Bandari in Kenya, Abora in Tanzania, Mazdi Fez in Morocco, Sheikh Jamal in Bangladesh, Sports Club Herediano in Costa Rica, and Edi Guanacaste in Costa Rica.
The CV is full. The CV is full. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay, I know that this episode is going to be very insightful for a lot of people. I'll first ask you, how did you get into sports law? Because Nigeria, I mean, we have thousands of people graduating in, law every year. How did you particularly specialize in sports law?
Okay, so when I look at it, I would just say that I just felt like I needed to do something that is not common. Like, yeah, I needed like something that's not common and something I had passion for. And like, I didn't care about it. Like, something I don't care about. I'm not driven by the money. Like, I wanted something I can do, whether there's pay or not, but I'll be happy. So I looked around and like, I played sports, I played soccer, I played tennis, both table tennis and lawn tennis and other sports. So I was like, yeah, I could do this. But I looked around, I was like, what if I could look into the sports area of the sports law area of the law area of sports? So yeah, and then I was fortunate to meet a club owner back then about 5-6 years ago, who was complaining bitterly about how his player went to Sweden and he has been deprived of his due entitlements, and that caught my interest. I was like, okay, we will do the job for you, and then he trusted us with the job, and we found our brief as Nigerian lawyers back then in Nigeria, and then we got a response from the club offering settlements. I think that was like something that piqued my interest to like, if this law can reach out to you guys for filing because they want to settle, it means that there are over thousands of others in Africa who needs your services. So it was from there like we started like reaching out to clubs, players, coaches, and agents. And not to forget, Anuge Zapo. He was the first guy that made me see the fun in doing sports law. That was far back as 2016 when I was still in the university. So Amubi was like the guy that lost the seed in the idea in my head. But my encounter with Suncell in 2019, 2020 was what spurred my interest to like look into this sports law sector more closely.
Amazing. That's good to hear. You say us, you say we. So is it fair to assume that you work with a team of lawyers? It's not just yourself that is working on these cases?
No, I used to work in I used to work in a partnership. Although we still partner, but yeah, we are like a team of lawyers in Nigeria that work on these cases together.
Okay. And what would you look at and say was you already referenced the club owner that you met and you helped them resolve that case. But would you look at that and say that was your first big case, or is there a different case that you're like, no, this was the first big one that I got?
I think that was a big one for us because that was the first time we had to interface with a foreign club outside of Nigeria. and then actually got them to the negotiation table to make an offer to a Nigerian club. Yeah, so I think I consider every case I get as a big case. None is less than other. So yeah, so that was it. But I think one case that is very dear to my heart was case of Emmanuel Moneke, because that was 2021. I read the Post newspaper and I saw him when he gave an interview that the Tanzania Football Federation owed him despite the agreements for him to be paid. And I was like, okay. I reached out to him through WhatsApp. Started out like, we could help you with this case at FIFA and all that. He was like, are you sure about this? I was like, yeah. And he gave us the case. That was as at April. And by June, we already got judgment in FIFA in his favor. So yeah, I think that's one case that stands out for us, because yeah, that was like an ex-international trusting like a group of young guys whom he has not met to handle such a case for him.
Amazing. And I'll ask you this question. When a Nigerian footballer is watching this, or a Nigerian club is watching this, what do you think? Should they all have lawyers on retainer, or should they only be engaging the services of a lawyer when something goes wrong?
Thank you for that. So I always preach preventive measures. I preach preventive measures, not reactive measures. I actually advise that they have lawyers on retainership. That is if they want to pay, that's if they will pay. But yeah, even if you don't have your lawyer on retainership, but like have some sort of arrangement, still lawyer, like not just lawyers generally, like a subject matter expert that knows these regulations of FIFA, CAS codes, Swiss law, and possibly European laws to advise them so as to like not step into the pitfall that would cost them times 10 of what they would have paid at the initial stage. So yeah, I think every lawyer, every club, every player, every coach, every agent should have a lawyer, a sports lawyer, just somewhere close by.
You said something when we were talking. You said that is if they want to pay. I mean, even in my own line of duty, I work with footballers on branding, marketing, their PR, things like that. I know how Nigerian players can be sometimes about not wanting to pay. Even Nigerian clubs, I've worked with MPFL clubs as well. I know how they can be. So, in your experience, what kind of opposition have you faced when it comes to things like that? The people that you've been in contact with, have they been willing to pay for your services, or do they try to find a way to navigate without really spending their money?
To be honest, I think when it comes to like the ex-internationals, for the jobs we have done for them or I have done for them, I said they are all like reactive justice, like we are reacting to a situation. So these jobs were based on contingency arrangements. Like, yeah, we do this job, and then if it's successful, we get a percentage of it. And when the jobs were successful, we were paid. So why I said if they would pay or if they can pay was when it spoke about retainership, because they would tell you, unlike Europe, US, or UK, where you pay for health insurance or car insurance, back home in Africa or in Nigeria, they don't believe in insurance. Most of them don't believe in insurance. So they're like, why would I pay you and I don't have a case in a year, or I don't need your services in a year? So that is the mindset. So they believe that they should only pay you when there is a problem, but they don't know that they could save money. Like I was telling a player, what if you pay me every year 1% of your salary, and I'll be on a standby to review your contract and all that? What if you don't review my contracts in a year for me? I'm like, okay. So yeah, they find it difficult to make that retainer, like make that payment to have you on retainer. But when it comes to like percentages, like a contingency, I've not had a bad experience. They always come true. But like to convince a Nigerian club owner or an African club owner to part with 10 million naira, $10,000, $20,000 a year for your services, I don't think they will do that. Not all. Yeah, I have a couple of them. I have a couple of them on retainers currently in the MPFL, and they pay. Like, I think because things are changing, but at the initial stage, it was difficult to get them to make this payment.
And like you said, what a lot of people don't realize is that when you then hire the person to react to something that has happened, you end up paying a larger fee in terms of whatever percentage of the entire thing that they're collecting. So it's just something that I hope that people that are watching this learn from. Okay, let's switch over to a little bit of like knowledge and advice that footballers need to know. From a legal perspective, what are some things that you would say as a football player if you are trying to make a move, say from Nigeria to a club abroad? What does that footballer need to be aware of legally?
Yeah, first thing first is as long as player is concerned, he needs to have a copy of his contract. You must have a copy of your contract, because I've dealt with cases in the from the Eastern Europe where players don't even have a copy of their contracts, but they will tell you that they have so contract for so years, but they don't have a copy. So first things first is to always demand for a copy of your contracts. At times they will tell you my agent has it, so I don't really care. So, but like first thing first is always ensure that you have a copy of your contract. Then secondly, in that contract, you have to make sure that you have the duration, like the terms are defined. Like I'm going to play for you for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They must be defined. And then your salaries, you have to make sure like if you have to make sure like either you are in net or in gross, like it must be clearly spelled out. And then the issue most of the players fall into, I call it the dispute resolution clause issue. Like a player is going from Nigeria to, let's say, Ghana, and then the contract contains the clause that says in the event of dispute, the civil courts of Ghana will have jurisdiction. And then when there's a dispute, you're not Ghanaian, so you might not even have the financial power to engage a Ghanaian lawyer to handle that case for you. But there's a more effective way or less cost effective way, that is giving jurisdiction to FIFA. So I always tell players, look out for like, is there duration? Are the contracts signed by both parties, the club by yourself? And then does FIFA have jurisdiction to hear that matter? If these things are not lacking, then I think you have a problem, because when there's a dispute, yeah, like when they say you might have an injury without a remedy, that's how I'll call it. If that's dispute resolution clause is not clearly stated, they'll get an injury without a remedy. So I think these are I think clauses players should be careful or wary about when they are signing contracts. And finally, as I said, they must always have a copy of their contracts, because I've done disputes where I had to write the other party or write the FIFA data protection departments to release a copy of the contracts to me as the attorney. And it takes so much time to get those stuff sorted. So players need to always demand a copy of their contracts.
Okay. And how about for a Nigerian club? We have a lot of academies that are coming up in Nigeria these days that are moving players to different countries around the world. Legally, what are some of the things that a club needs to be aware of and needs to do when they want to move players abroad?
So first thing first, I think I always advocate for these clubs. Like, are you legally protected? Like, are you corporate ends? Are you legal personnel? Like, are you registered in Nigeria? Are you affiliated to your FA? Are you on the FIFA transfer matching system, the domestic transfer matching system? Are you on the FIFA Connect? So these are the basic stuff that they should do first before we now talk about transfers outside of Nigeria. And as you might know, it depends on, like, as you said, when the players are being transferred, are they being transferred as amateurs or professionals? That's another discussion entirely, because different rules applies to these two status of players. So, like, if you're transferring an amateur, it's a different ballgame entirely, and if you're transferring a professional, it's a different ballgame entirely. But generally, once these clubs have these things I have mentioned, and then they have been able to keep track, like they've been able to keep track or have documentations to prove that these players were with them so year. For amateurs, they'll get training compensation and solidarity contribution. Then for professional contracts, these clubs must ensure first that the terms are clearly stated, the amounts, time frame for payments, and as I said earlier, if there's a default or a disagreement, the dispute resolution mechanism or clause, who has jurisdiction. So imagine the Nigerian club signing a contract with a Belarusian club, that in the event of disputes, that the Belarusian High Court will have jurisdiction. How do you leave from Nigeria to Belarus
So go
and enforce such contract? So the contract is as good as dead, because if you go to FIFA, all I have to do is tell you the chamber does not have jurisdiction, and the matter will be dismissed. So these are the stuffs, like, you should, like, I think that's the major stuff you should be aware of. Like, you might have a contract that is signed and stuff, but it's not enforceable. So you must be sure that the contract you have is enforceable. That is for the professional status. Then for the amateur cadre, you can only get training compensation and solidarity. So once you have all those things I have mentioned in place, then I think you're good to go.
And you mentioned transfer matching system when you were speaking earlier. It's something that we hear of all the time. We also hear of ITC, International Transfer Certificate. Oh, players are trying to get their ITC, blah, 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 things like that. Can you just give us a better understanding? What exactly is the ITC and what is the TMS?
So the TMS, as you said, is transfer matching system. So there's a wrong notion in the industry that TMS is used to register players. You hear clubs say, we want to register our players on TMS. That is not TMS is transfer matching system. That's a player coming from point A to point B. So point A keys in the information, point B keys in the information, and it matches. The transfer goes through. That's a transfer matching system. So the details point A and point B puts, club A and club B put, they must match it. If it does not match, then it pops up the transfer exceptions, which has to be resolved before it can go through. So it is at the point of this both parties, when they match the information correctly and transfers goes through, the what they call it, the buying club, the federation of the buying club will now request for the ITC, that is the International Transfer Certificate, and then the selling club's federation will release it to them. Under the new regulation, it must be released within 3 days, 72 hours. And once it is released and the other club acknowledges or accepts receipt of the ITC, then the player is deemed to have been registered. So a player, if your ITC as a player, ITC, that's the International Transfer Certificate, then in the domestic concept, in the domestic context, is the DTC, that domestic transfer certificate. A player moves from England back to Lobby Stars. What they will get is DTC, that's domestic transfer certificate. But in Nigeria, player moving from Nigeria to Cotonou, Cameroon, ITC is applicable. So ITC that's what concludes what they call it, the transfer. Also, that is on one end. Then also, when the player is moving as a free player, like when the player is out of contract or his contract has been terminated for just cause and so on and so forth, you hear players saying that if I terminate my contract, my ITC will not be released, or the club say they will not release my ITC if I don't do this. Clubs don't control your ITC. ITCs are within the jurisdiction or within the hip of the federations and not the clubs. FIFA understands these issues that might arise. That's why FIFA will say that if a player demands for an ITC and if a new federation of the player demands for the ITC and the old federation, they have a duty to contact the former club and ask them what is the status of the player and whether the players in good standing with them. So most clubs want to be vengeful and they will tell you, no, don't release the ITC. FIFA has made provision that says if you don't release this ITC, or if you at times, okay, so there are 2 scenarios. When the request is made, you either ignore it, or you dispute it, or you reject, you refuse to release the ITC. So when you ignore it, the 3-day rule applies immediately. That if you ignore it after 3 days, the other club can resign player provisionally, and then after like a certain period of time, it becomes permanent. Then if the other club rejects or refuses to deliver the ITC, then it goes on the player to contact his lawyer or the federation that is requesting the ITC to tell them to dispute it. So when they dispute it, they're like, oh, this club is refusing to release the ITC on so ground. But the player is a free player. This is the proof. The player has terminated his contract for just cause. So this is the proof. So when it's uploaded, the matter will be taken to the player status committee of FIFA. And then they will look to the matter, and I think within 7 days or so, they will pass a ruling and then get the player registered. Transfer matching system, TMS is for clubs. And then the ITC is basically what without the ITC, player cannot be registered. That's just the truth, because the ITC is it's like a transfer of a transfer of your legal personnel from the country where you are to the next country. So these 2 things are very important in the transfer of transfer of players.
And thank you for that insight. Let me now ask you, because when you were speaking, you spoke about, potentially a club or a player terminating their contract. So I'll start from the player's angle. What are some legal just reasons why a player can decide to terminate their contract with their club?
Okay, I think the most popular one, which everyone knows, is the one of Article 14Bs, where if a player is being owed for more than 2 months of it, or if it's being owed an amount that exceeds 2 months of his salary, or 2 months and above, you must be owed 2 months. So if anything less than 2 months, you cannot. So once you're being owed for more than 2 months, a player can terminate his contract for just cause. That is one. Let's say in this also the club is paying the player. Some clubs will keep paying the player salaries, and they will stop, and they will not pay bonuses or sign-on fee. Now, if the sign-on fee, if you look at it, or the bonuses, and it corresponds to exactly 2 months salary, or it exceeds 2 months salary, you can terminate for just cause. That is one. 2, where a player is being demoted from, let's say team A player, and all of a sudden he's been demoted to team B without reason, or he's been isolated from training, he's been asked to train alone. A player can terminate because it's what they call personality rights. Even if you're being paid salary, as long as you're not playing, or you're asked to train alone, or like you're exiled, your personality rights is being infringed, because personality rights is like your economic, like your commercial rights. Like you have to play to be seen, so your commercial value can go up, so people can purchase you. So even if you're paying salary and that right has been infringed upon, and you have not done an act that is inconsistent, Because you can terminate your contract for just cause, and then proceed to FIFA to claim compensation for damages. That is one. Then also when they play, like you see players who are playing for a club, and after mid-season, the club registers them and registers a new person. That in itself is an automatic automatic termination. So the player can approach FIFA and say, hey, I have done this. This has been done. This has not been done. So I have been wronged. So this is what I'm claiming. But remember, the player must not do as that are inconsistent to what he's claiming. So if you're being registered and you're going to training with them, you're being paid salary, you're traveling with them, you have appeased you cannot claim that you have been wronged. So you cannot say you have been registered and then you still train with them and so on and so forth. So you must not do acts that are inconsistent with what you are asking for. I think that's some of it for the players. Then I think for the clubs, generally, a club wakes up and says a player is not performing up to standard. Poor performance and terminates his contract. Under the RSTP, poor performance is not a ground for termination of contract. So if a player's contract gets terminated because he's not playing well or because coach does not like him, he has just grounds to approach the FIFA DRC, ask for compensation. And then you also have a point where the club says, "Oh, we were not able to get you work permit and residence permit, so you can't play with us." It's not players. That's not players' business. It is the club's duty to make sure that his work permits and residence visas residence permits are gotten. However, the player must not have done acts that would jeopardize the club. Like, let's say the club asks for his international passport and refuses to deliver it up. So if the club does not register you, if the club does not get these documents because of what you have done, then you cannot claim they have breached their contract. So if the player has done all that that is required of him, and then the club does not still do this, do that, do that. So that's like the player can bring an action for breach of contract, because basically the club will ask him to leave. That you cannot play for us, you cannot do that. And then you also have the instance where a player gets injured and the club just freezes him out and tells, "Oh, you're injured, this, that, and this. So yeah, I think let me make this point clear. I handled a case where the sporting director just messaged the player on WhatsApp and says, "The coach does no longer need your services, so please leave." That message alone was enough for us to go to FIFA and claim compensation for breach of contract. So these are some of the ways in which breach of contracts can arise on both sides. Also, remember, if a player leaves camp without authorization and the club has written him persistently to return, and he fails to return, and the club sanctions him, because remember, termination of contract should be the last resort. That is why even when they owe you or when they do A and B and C, you must have written them. Even when they register you, you must write them and give them time to put things in order, to restore things as they would have been. Even when they owe you more than 2 months salary or 2 months and above, you must write them, giving them time to remedy this default. So yeah, so when a player skips camp or training without valid reason, and the club has written him maybe 1 or 2 times to return and he does not, and he has been sanctioned and if he does not return, the club can terminate the contract for just cause and then also proceed against the player. Or a player who is still in contract goes and signs to another club while still in contract, the club can still go against him for breach of contract.
Okay. And I'll ask you, in the scenario whereby, let's say I'm a player now, AyoT, and I sign with Pius's club for 5 years. That's the terms of my contract. And maybe within 2 years, Pius just sends me a message on WhatsApp, "AyoT, we don't need your services again. You are playing rubbish." And I take the case to FIFA. Am I going to get compensated for the remaining duration of my contract, or how does it work?
Okay, so when you're filing a claim for breach of contract at FIFA, first thing first, you claim what is already due, and then you claim compensation for the residual value of your contract. So the residual value of your contract means the remaining 3 years. Yeah, but however, there's a caveat there. If AyoT, while we're at FIFA trying to get you the balance of the 3 years contract, you go and sign with Oganla FC, and the money you sign with Oganla FC exceeds what we're asking for these remaining 3 years, you get nothing. You only get what was already being owed to you before you were asked to leave. And if nothing was being owed to you, they can award you maybe 3 months of your 3 months salary as a compensation, so you're not left empty-handed. But yeah, in the event that you don't get a contract and the case comes to a logical conclusion and there's a decision, FIFA will always award the residual value of the contract as compensation for breach of contract.
So what if FIFA awards me the residual value? Then 1 month after they award me, I now sign for a new club. What happens? Do I just continue as normal?
Yeah, as long as the case is closed. But remember, if the case is, let's say the club appeals to CAS, and while in CAS you sign a new contract, then they will say that you have mitigated your loss or your damages. But if the case closes, that's because when it's a decision, you have 10 days to request for the grounds. Let us say the club does not request for the grounds or does not appeal within 21 days to CAS. And after 1 month, you get a new contract. And the whole money is yours. It doesn't matter. So you have those 3 years in your pockets, and then the new one you sign is also in your pocket.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Now I'll ask you, what would you say is maybe like the craziest thing that you've seen personally or you've worked on that a club did to a player?
There are so many, but I think the craziest one was 2 years ago. I won't mention the country, but it's in North Africa, where a player's signature was forged. The player's signature was forged that he has been paid all his entitlement and all his salaries and bonuses, whereas this player has not been paid a dime. So I think that's for the player side, that's the craziest. Then for the club, I think this was in Slovakia, 2021. The club we represented the Nigerian club, and the club tendered a false document from my clients saying that my client has waived his right to that cost of claim we're filing. And this waiver came while we were still at the DRC. So the question was like, how would I come to the DRC and then sign a waiver within my right and I'm before the court? So I think the issues we have seen are like majorly forgeries, either of the parties, like majorly the clubs against these players, or I won't call the country again, where players are being forced to sign plain sheets. Like you just put your signature on the plain sheet and submit it to the club, and then they determine what they put there and what they don't put there. I think the most insane I saw was when I did a case 2 years ago, and the player was saying like he was earning over 200,000 USD for 3 years in that particular country. And I was like, where's your contract? He doesn't have it. So he has just a plain sheet of paper, which he signed by himself. And I was like, you have proved that you were paid X amount of money. He was like, no. So I was like, well, this case is tough. You might not win this case, but let's give it a trial. Let's give it a trial. So we got to FIFA. You'll be shocked at your TV. What we saw was that the boy was earning $1,000 per season.
Wow. But he thought it was earning what?
For 3 seasons.
Over 3 years.
Yes.
Wow. But in reality, he was only earning $1,000 per season.
Yeah, so how was the club? They were able to do this because he signed up plain sheets.
So they can just write whatever they want to add to that sheet. Your signature is already there.
That's great.
Wow. So players need to be very careful when they are doing things like this.
Yeah.
That's
that's the craziest thing I have seen in my career. I was shocked.
It's crazy. Okay, I'll ask you this. Have you ever had to deal with a case of doping?
No, I haven't done doping yet, because let's say in our part of the world, doping is not so popular, but like I think it's not so popular per se. So I haven't really done much. I've not really done anything at all on doping. I have rather done more basketball than doping.
Okay. Let me ask you now, looking into the future. I mean, so many things are changing. There's AI, there's all sorts of commercial rights now that involve players, things like that. How do you see sports law? I would say, particularly in Nigeria, how do you see it evolving with all these new technologies and new instances of different things that are happening?
For one, and it would help. It will help a whole lot, and it also cause harm, in the sense that AI is useful and also harmful, because if you feed it to the wrong information, if you feed it to the wrong information and all that, it gives you the wrong stuff as well. So let's say most people because you believe that AI can generate contracts for you or stuff, you go to AI, please generate a contract between so and so for me. AI will do that, and AI, because you did not give it specific instructions, you have to get what they call it that you give to AI.
The prompts.
Prompts. Yeah, thank you. Try to get AI. If you don't give the specific prompts you need, so generate a generic contract and give to you, and that's very harmful. But if we embrace AI holistically and then get professionals close to you, because people think AI will take people out of job, but I disagree. AI will help us become more efficient at our jobs, because as long as you're able to feed it to the right prompts and so on and so forth, it will help. So I believe in Nigeria AI will help if we use it positively. Like if we don't start a way to not to avoid paying professionals.
Yeah.
Because that's how that thing I think might happen. People might just say, well, why do I have to pay a lawyer when I can just tell AI draft this process for me and draft this process for me? So I think with a sports lawyer giving it the right prompts, then I think AI is the future.
No, yeah, I think I would agree with you. I mean, AI is something there's no industry that AI is not coming into, even in my industry as well, media, marketing, all these things. But one thing that I always say is AI is there to support your work. The reality of it is that if the tech is available, why wouldn't you use it? Somebody like myself, if I'm doing certain things for a client, I might just go and I'll put in, I try to get some information. I also think that for players, it doesn't mean that you don't have to engage a lawyer anymore, but even yourself, the AI can just help you to maybe understand certain things better. You give it the right prompts, it explains what you are going through to you. You know how to manage your situation a little bit better. But the reality of it is that maybe in the future, AI can remove the need for certain jobs. But as of now, I don't think that any AI is that advanced that you say, oh, you absolutely don't need a lawyer. Even the most advanced ones that we've seen, like the DeepSeek, ChatGPT, all those ones, they still cannot do the job 100%. You still need an expert in the field that can potentially work with the AI to make their job easier. But it's just something interesting. And I mean, it's going to be fun to see how things continue to evolve as time goes on, as these technologies develop. To round up, I'll ask you, if there's a young lawyer that's watching this now, maybe the person is still doing their undergrad, or the person is in Nigerian law school, or maybe the person has been called to bar and, they're just getting into the field. What is an advice that you give them if they are aspiring to enter into the football or the sports world?
I think I always say this everywhere. You just seek proper mentorship. Reach out to mentors. When I started, I was reading myself because, sports law is not being taught in Nigeria, for example. I was not taught sports law in school. I taught myself with everything I knew, but I also sought mentorship from LinkedIn is there. I think what is so advanced that if you chat 4 persons who will respond to you. Like I was so fortunate when I ended up Jacques London 2020. That was the director of compliance at FIFA. He responded and he was he's been like a mentor to me to date. So I think just for them to seek proper mentorship, I know most people want to jump on the trends, or they see an issue, they want to write an opinion about the issue. Or not getting proper mentorship and then So I think you just seeking proper mentorship and then self-development.
I mean, the power of networking is something that is very huge, Just like you said, I mean, look at us that we're having this conversation now. We connected over social media and just one person just reaching out to the other. Even when people ask me sometimes, like, how do you interview all these Nigerian footballers? And I always tell them, see, I just send them a message, because sometimes you might think, this person is too big or this person is so far away and there's no way that I can respond to me. But I always feel like as long as you have something of value, you're not coming to the person to just leech off of them and just be a nuisance in their life. But you yourself, you're coming with value, you're coming with knowledge, and you speak to the person properly. Obviously, doesn't mean that every single person will give you the time of day, but there will be some that will see your value, give you the time of day, and as long as you apply yourself properly, you'll continue to grow in the industry.
Yeah, you're right. Because I think Amonike, I just chatted him up on WhatsApp. And then that was how he gave me the job. I've not seen him today. It's face to face.
Wow. Amazing. I said last one, but let me ask you another question. Sorry, just I should have asked this earlier. When it comes to these cases that are being taken to FIFA, is it something that someone physically has to go to Switzerland to do the case, or how does it usually work? And how quick, typically, do these issues get resolved?
Yeah, I think FIFA understands the needs to resolve these disputes fast, because most of these disputes are financial in nature. You don't want a player to be out of contract and then you don't give him judgments in 1 year. How would they eat an order? So FIFA has launched what they call the legal portal, where you upload all your cases. Even CAS, you file by mail and then you file by the CAS e-platform. And then I think I've done a case that took me just 28 days. I think we got judgments recently. We filed the case in November. We got judgments in February. So it takes let's say an average of 3 months to get judgment at FIFA, and 45 days grace for payments and all that. But CAS is where we have the issue. CAS is to develop CAS is like the regular court. There was a case we did in CAS that took close to 3 years before we got judgment. Yeah, so right now we are doing a case against FIFA in CAS. We did the hearing last year, July or June, but up to now we've not gotten judgments. So yeah, FIFA talks about expediency and accuracy. So let's say in 3-4 months you get judgments at FIFA. Whether the cases are not complex, but in CAS, unless there are interim measures, let's say at the Olympics and all that, where if you don't give judgments immediately, things will have to spoil. Let's say you're filing at the end of the season when you're being fined illegally, that when you're being deducted or have been deducted. CAS cannot take 1 year, 2 years, because by the time they finish it,
another season has already finished.
Another club has gone to Champions League or Europa. So those matters are being handled very fast. But when it comes to like employment disputes, CAS takes a year, 2, 3 years, 4 years even to handle these cases. So yeah,
is it something that a club can do intentionally? Like if I file a dispute against the club, FIFA says, oh yes, the club should pay me. Can the club now intentionally say, okay, they want to take the case up to CAS, just because they know that it's going to take longer?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. In 2021 or 2020, we did a case against the club in Turkey. So we got judgment against them. The judgment was a considerable amount of money, and the transfer window was coming. And they didn't know who were going to put them on the transfer ban, so they won't be able to sign players. They went to FIFA, they went to what they call it. They went to CAS and paid 1,000 Swiss franc as CAS office fee, and delayed us until they were done making transfers, and they abandoned you.
Wow.
So just for them to be able to have done that business.
So that was just a loophole for them to be able to make transfers.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm assuming for the player side, if it's a player in Nigeria now, for example, who covers their legal fees? If they receive positive judgment, does the club have to cover their legal fees, or how does that work?
So it depends on your lawyer and then how experienced he is. Like when we handle our briefs CAS, we only make one prayer, very specific prayer, that CAS should order the other party, whether the claimant or the respondent, to bear the entire cost of proceedings and to even contribute to my client's legal costs. So what happens is that costs are being awarded or shared in accordance with the proportionality of your victory as CAS. So if you get all your relief you're seeking and asking, the other party bears the cost. So yeah. So the business players, they don't necessarily have to do so much, because in all the cases I've handled, I have not been a claimant. I've always been the respondent. I've always been defending. So I don't have to spend a dime, because you're the one that if you don't pay the cost, if you don't pay the advance of cost, the case will not be heard. So yeah, for the clients I've defended or represented at CAS, who've not borne the cost, and then when we get victory, the other party bears the entire cost of proceedings and also contributes to my client's legal costs. But you must make these prayers specifically. CAS is not a Father Christmas. You must make these prayers. If you don't make these prayers, they won't award them.
Okay, and when you say at FIFA, does FIFA charge any office fee, any cost for the case to go on?
Yeah, so for FIFA, once there's a natural person involved, let's say once there's a coach or a player or an agent who's a natural person, it's free. There's no advance of cost. But if there are two clubs, yeah, so it depends on this. Like I think less than from $1 to 49,000 is 1,000. From 50,000 to 99,000 is 2,000. From 100,000 to 149,000 is 3,000. From 150,000 to 199 is 4,000. Then from 200,000 and above, the only amount you can think of is $5,000 as advance of cost. That's for club to club.
I mean, for most clubs, that should be something that is not too crazy for them, I would imagine.
Yeah, but for academies in Nigeria,
so
we have found ourselves in a position where we as lawyers have to pay this cost for them. Because imagine a club that is staying in a small village in Ogun State, asking them to pay $2,000 for advance of cost. Like first of all, you have to know that this club doesn't even believe that you can win this case for them. So why would they have to go and incur that debt to fight for something they're not sure of? So they will just leave it. So it's not, because we know what we're doing now. We know what we're doing and what the client starts to benefit. So we'll just say, okay, this is something we can raise. So we'll pay the advance of cost for you. And then when we win the case, you refund us.
And then finally this time, where can people find you? If they want to reach out to you, if they want to hire your services, where can they find you?
I'm always active on my socials, like my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my X. my WhatsApp, yeah, my number. I think I feel like I answer pretty fast. So yeah, any of
Give
my
them
socials work.
what are your handles so that they can find you.
So just Pius Ndubuokwu. I think that's my Instagram, that's my X, that's Twitter, that's my LinkedIn. Like that's just my name anywhere you search for me. On Facebook too, that's my name.
Okay. And if there's a young lawyer that maybe is, the way you said, oh, you had mentors, if the person is looking at you and says, I want Pius to be my mentor, is that something that you are able and willing to do for young lawyers?
Because I cannot take all requests for mentorship, that's why I've established FLAM, where we can cater for a larger number of persons at the same time. So I think by next week we'll be having a webinar in Nigeria where I'm bringing in the top lawyers in Europe, lawyers for a webinar on the traditional issues in football. So yeah, so I can maybe give one or two insights, but I might not be able to give that detailed mentorship to like everyone. I have some people I mentor, but I cannot mentor everyone that comes to me. So that's why we have FLAM, where FLAM is like a larger platform who can like mentor so many persons at the same time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pius Ndubuokwu. Very informational, very educational session talking to you. Even I have learned quite a lot, just listening to you. Is there any final word, final message, anything that you want to say before I let you go today?
I think I would just, I'm an advocate of this. I think clubs should become more clubs. I think stakeholders in sports, not even football alone, even basketball. I think they should adopt the preventive measures. Lawyers are not just there for disputes. Lawyers are there to help you avoid these disputes and then maximize your earnings and all that. Even players who earn so much feel like, why does a lawyer need to advise when I already earn so much? But a lawyer can help you magnify or amplify your earnings. So I think we should adopt stakeholders should adopt. I have a lawyer per se. I pay lawyers for services too. People should adopt the preventive measure, the preventive approach. Don't wait until these things come to you before you start looking for a lawyer. I think stakeholders should adopt the preventive approach as opposed to the reactive approach in dealing with issues in sports. I think that's it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pius. And thank you to everyone that has watched and listened to us up until this point. I know that people that are watching this might have some additional questions to ask. So if you guys have questions, you can maybe leave your questions in the comments, and I will try in the future to maybe engage Pius again and bring him on to respond to some of the questions that people particularly have. But I've really enjoyed it. I hope that everyone else has enjoyed it. I hope that you yourself, Pius, has also enjoyed this session.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. This has been EaglesTracker, the home of Nigerian football. Bye-bye, guys.
Yeah, bye.